Hello everybody, welcome to today's video. In this video, I'm going to talk about a few core philosophies that I personally believe, which worked very well with respect to my career. I have seen jumps such as 3x, 8x jumps in my salary in the initial few years of my career, and I owe a lot of my jumps with respect to salary to these core philosophies, which I knowingly, unknowingly have stick to. And these worked big time for me, and I have seen the same core philosophies working with a few of my friends, a few of the folks who I mentor on a regular basis. Alright, so in this video I'm going to talk about three such core philosophies, and I hope you can actually implement them. I'll share a few personal examples and tell you how it worked, why it worked, and a lot of these scenarios as well as we go along. Now let's get started with this first philosophy. Number one, I want to talk about is there is a very common mistake that a lot of young professionals, college students do. That is, they would prefer to go do interesting work in any kind of setup. But I always prioritized working with interesting people or working with good people over doing interesting work. Let me give you some examples. Right? In the initial years of my McKinsey career, I formed some really good relationships with one of my managers. And the manager was really fantastic guy. He supported me quite a lot. And the relationship was in a meaningful way, it just bonded naturally. Right? After a couple of months, while I was working on a different project, he called me one day and said that, hey, Pawan, I know you are not interested in doing this specific kind of work in the e-commerce space. I know that. But we are struggling to get good associates on the team. And I know you are a great guy. I would be really be happy if you join my team for a 2-month period. Well, to be very honest, I don't like that project. Neither I like that entire industry or I didn't want to continue in that specific setup. But I said yes, I actually continued for 2 months working with him. And subsequently, I moved on to different projects. That 2-month window was a very short window for me. But let me tell you what happened. 2 years down the lane, when I was applying for my business schools, he was the first person to write my recommendation. Number two, I was in analytics practice and I was applying for an MBA degree. And typically folks in the analytics practice do not get sponsored for their MBAs. And this particular manager was the guy who was pushing my case very hard and putting my candidacy to the overarching leadership within McKinsey and saying that, hey, yes, we need to sponsor Pawan. And he will come back to us, become a great associate, and he'll become a great partner. Right? So I'm not saying that hey, you go and you become a bootlicker on a day-to-day basis, but if you believe that a relationship can sustain over a long term, you need to go out of your comfort zone. Right? It is not about the work that you do, but it is about what kind of people you are working with on a day-to-day basis. Because after 10 years from now, you will progress in your career. Similarly, your managers, your bosses, they are also going to progress in their careers. They move and they shift jobs. They want you to be the first person they want to hire, right, in the new company. So opportunities are then not related to your resume, your interview performance or anything, but it is just related to how well you maintain that specific relationship. So please do not underestimate the importance of the networking and hey, how you go out of your comfort zone and prioritize individuals over the work that you do in the entire corporate world. I agree, work is important. The kind of work that you do is important, but please prioritize the other part if you can. Okay, so this philosophy worked for me like a charm. I always prioritize people over the kind of work that I'm doing. I did not bother if I'm doing coding on a daily basis. I did not bother if I'm doing a lot of Excel work on a daily basis or if the work is totally uninteresting. I just have to schedule meetings. All of these things were fine for me. Right? If you are still in early stages of your career, please don't worry about these things. Please don't say that the work is boring. I don't want to do it. It is fine even if the work is boring. Think who your manager is and see if you like them versus not. Okay, so this is the first philosophy that I wanted to talk about. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about is upskilling, right? Upskilling is fine. We all know the importance of upskilling, but I would rather talk about, hey, learning on a daily basis, right? Let me again give you a personal example from my own career. I started off with Accenture and literally I was going to office to play table tennis. I was getting like daily 6 to 7 hours to practice my table tennis skills, and I was becoming a pro in table tennis. But if you ask me what I was doing at work, literally zero, nothing, right? I used to go get some basic breakfast, then go to the table tennis room, play for a few hours, then get lunch, then again go back to the table tennis room, and then at 5, 6 p.m. board the bus and come back home, right? This was my routine literally for 6 months. And when I looked back, there was nothing that I was learning. So when I moved to a different organization, I made a priority that every week I start taking notes towards the end of the week that, hey, what are the 3 or 4 things that I've learned in that particular week? If there are a few weeks where the notes were pretty blank, that's fine. But if it is repetitive for a few months, then it's a red flag. I used to go back to my manager and say that, hey, yes, I did not learn anything over the last 6 months. Okay, is there a possibility for me to change my project? There are a few instances with my second employer, that was Mu Sigma, where the client used to give us a lot more time, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks time for an effort that I literally could complete in less than 1 week, right? Because there were a lot of checks in places, there were a lot of people who had to review the work, who had to make sure that right things and the perfect things are going to the client, right? But I was getting literally bored with that scenario, and then I started looking out for new jobs. Now, I would say the most important thing in this entire aspect is continuing to evaluate what you are doing, and more importantly, what you are learning on a weekly basis. Please sit down Friday afternoon, Thursday afternoon for 10-15 minutes, just without a smartphone, without any other distraction. Put down pen to paper and say that, hey, yes, this is what I have learned in the last 1 week. 2 things, 3 things, 4 things. If you don't see anything coming out for a few weeks, then it's a red flag, right? This worked for me again very well, because the things that I have learned in Mu Sigma, I've learned regressions, I've learned clusters, I've learned marketing analytics, I've learned basics of marketing. A lot of these things, I started taking notes and I started putting them on paper, and subsequently, these learnings helped me get a very good job at McKinsey, right? I completely 100% believe that my learnings at Mu Sigma were actually a big stepping stone for me to have close to 8x of salary increase when I joined McKinsey. And this entire thing was possible because I was very conscious about what I was learning every single day. It didn't seem like a lot on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, but when I looked back for 3 years that I spent at Mu Sigma, I very clearly know that that was the turning point in my entire career. Right? The third thing which I want to talk about is, hey, don't believe that you should stick to the same job forever. Now, let's take, for example, what's happening in the industry. What's happening is there are 3 to 4 organizations like Unacademy, Lido Learning. Then there are a lot of these companies which are firing employees because the economics are not working out for them. Fair enough. If these companies are firing employees in the first instinct of when it's not working out for the organization, as an employee, what should you be thinking? You cannot say that, hey, I'm loyal to my company and I want to work this company for my entire lifetime. No, that's not a good thought process to have. You work in a company as long as you learn. If you do not learn, if there is no good salary growth, absolutely nothing wrong with switching the company. So you need to keep taking this decision. You need to keep evaluating yourself. Should I continue to work in this particular company versus not? Every 6 months, every 1 year, every 2 years. You just can't say that I'll continue to work in this particular company for 10 years, right? Nothing wrong if you leave. This is not our parents' generation or the generations prior to that, where our parents used to stick to the same job for 30 years, right? Now, if you are not moving jobs every 2 years, 3 years, literally the amount of money that you can make also goes down. So probably in a company, the increments are around 10% at best, but you switch jobs, you are making easily 25% plus, right? Again, don't go switch every 6 months. That doesn't look good on your resume as well, but it's absolutely fine if you are thinking about new career opportunities once every 2 years, right? So that's the third thing which I want to highlight. So the final thing which includes all these things together is building on your strengths. I've seen a lot of people working in IT services industry and then willing to move into consulting. They are working in, again, software, technology, or any of these industries, and they want to move into financial services. Nothing wrong with that. But what do you lose if you make these kind of drastic changes? you are not building on your strengths. You probably work for 4 years in the IT space, and if you move into something completely different, what happens? You are losing all the work, you are losing all the skills that you have learned in this particular space for 4 to 5 years. Rather, if you upskill in the same space and you move into using your previous skills, you are probably looking at again a 10x jump rather than starting from scratch in a different space altogether. But let me give you a small insight over here. If you are interested in consulting and if you have background in, let's say, IT, right? All you need to do is look at IT consulting. All you need to do is tech consulting, digital consulting, which is quite a lot, which is happening quite a lot. For example, you go look at McKinsey, BCG, Bain websites, there is digital practice. You go and apply to that digital practice and you are using and you are building on your strengths. Rather than applying to a generalist role where you are competing with a Harvard MBA student, Stanford MBA student and all these guys, if you are applying to the digital practice, you are literally not competing with a lot of people. You have a good MBA degree and you are applying with a lot of technology background. It's a great start. And even if you are applying for a master's program abroad, right, MBA, MI, many of these things, and you have 2-3 years experience in technology space, you go teach kids about coding. You go and support a startup in the technology space, or you go support a startup in any other space with respect to their technology needs. Now that is called building on your strengths, right? You build on your strengths to not necessarily start from scratch, but to continue building on top of it. This is absolutely required, whether you are working with interesting people, whether you are making sure you learn every single day, or whatever else you do, right? So please take this as the base. I hope this is helpful. These are the 3 things, and on top of that, adding on your strengths, these 4 things have literally changed my career track multiple times. Whether it is moving from Accenture to Mu Sigma to McKinsey, and McKinsey to even moving into the startup space. These philosophies are something which I stick to even today, and I believe these philosophies will work for you as well. You just need to imbibe them, stick to them on a day-to-day basis, and see the magic work out in the long run. Hope this is helpful for you guys. I will connect with you again tomorrow. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.